Welcome to the podcast, Rewind, Pause, Play with the UTS Women's Mentoring Group.
The purpose of the UTS Women's Mentoring Group is to provide opportunities for women of UTS to develop skills that focus on personal growth and leadership in a nurturing environment, promoting learning, mentoring, and support for career advancement initiatives.
As UTS continues to grow, we have more employees in different time zones, on various shifts, and of course with busy schedules. We decided to start this podcast so we could reach more of our employees on any day and at any time that's convenient to them.
Our goal is to increase the conversation about an array of topics with a diverse group of employees across our entire organization.
Whether it's walking on the treadmill, commuting to and from work, or maybe on your couch during quarantine, we are glad you're here with us.
As you listen, we'd love to get your feedback on topics you're interested in hearing about, or even an employee you would enjoy hearing from. Please feel free to email us at uwmg@utsnacks.com.
Al escuchar, nos encantaría obtener sus comentarios sobre los temas que estén interesados en escuchar, o tal vez conocen un empleado que disfrutarían escuchar en este podcast. No dude en enviarnos un correo electrónico a uwmg@utsnacks.com.
So we are excited to have three guests on our episode today, the three UTS employees that were named as Women of Influence in the Food Industry by the Griffin Report of the Northeast in 2021. So welcome to Melissa Bautista, Tina Kline, and Kristin Powell, and congratulations to each of you. I have some questions for the group, and then I really would like to share some thoughts from the people who nominated you on, really why did you stand out within the organization, and then you went on to be recognized by a larger group as Women of Influence. So first of all, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
So part of our mission with the UTS Women's Mentoring Group is to support a culture that will attract, develop, and retain talented women at all levels of the organization and embrace the advancement of women as leaders. So being that you've been named as Women of Influence, it's something we'd like to continue within the organization. Tell me a little bit about who's influenced you in your career that got you to where you were. We can start with Melissa.
So I would say probably kind of middle of my career when I was with Frito-Lay, I had a really strong mentor and a really strong boss named Janice Kasanovich. And just seeing her passion for the people and focus on, business while balancing family at the same time made a big difference in my career and how I kind of viewed future state. Very down to earth and wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty and help out even at those senior levels. So I think that's somebody that I've looked up to throughout my career that has definitely made a big impact on me as well as how I am as a leader.
That's fantastic. Kristen?
I would have to kind of echo that a little bit with Melissa. It was probably late. I mean, in the beginning of your career, you're just starting out things, but it was when I actually came to the Pepsi world. It was a woman, Carol Sunkel, is the one that had hired me. And I mean, I just saw her. She was a mother. She was the breadwinner of the family. And she took me under her wing. She saw something within me. And she just mentored me my entire career. And it is kind of, I look back now at my age where I am, it's where she was. And she's retired now, which is awesome. But yeah, it's just being able to be supported in what she saw in me. And she's very influential, and she had been in the Pepsi system. So I felt proud to work for her.
Interesting that both examples were women, which really sets up, a lot of what we're talking about is how important within an organization it can be to have women as mentors influencing other women in their career. Tina?
Yeah, I have two, actually. The first one was coach that I had prior to starting my career. He had really pushed this concept of taking on, every opportunity. If you put the time and effort in at the lowest level, eventually stuff's going to kind of fall from the top. So my strategy, I wasn't the best athlete. I'd attend every optional session, every workout, every practice, and eventually that paid off. And I really feel like that kind of carried over into my career. So when I first started as an intern at UTS, I just felt like I was always jumping on every project, willing to help with whatever it was. The funny story that I remember is coming in during a blizzard. I swear there was like 2 feet of snow at like it was back in 2009, 2010, getting picked up by Tom Dempsey, who was our president at the time. He calls me, I'm barely a year into my career in an entry level position. He calls me and says, "Hey, I'm going to pick you up. What's your address?" So I'm walking out to his car and like the snow's up to my knees. But, I went and I showed up. And, I was one of the few people in the office. There might have been a handful of people. And the next week I get this big project from Tom. And the next thing you know, he's talking to Jack Landsman, who was the head of sales at that time. He gives me more projects. And eventually that kind of led to my next role. So, coming in at that snowstorm was such like a simple thing, but it had such a huge impact on my career. And there's been like little things like that where I've just kind of been in the right place at the right time or just kind of showed up. And things have kind of been thrown my way. So that concept has kind of like, I felt like it's instilled dedication, passion, persistence, like throughout my career. And then the other person actually is at UTS, Haley Flynn. So when I first started in sales, she started giving me additional tasks. She kind of took me under her wing and she helped me kind of migrate into that next role. She taught me like the concept that the way you get promoted is you find someone who can do your job as good as you or better. And then you grow by someone below you pushing you up to that next level. And that's kind of like the ultimate success as like a mentor or a leader is having someone that's so good that they push you up to that next position.
Thank you. Well, and I think, I made the comment a minute ago. It was interesting that one of your examples, Tina, and then Melissa and Kristen's were all women. So one of the other things I thought about when I read through the Griffin Report was, with women being recognized specifically in this episode, I'm interested in all of your thoughts and I'll go in the same order. Do you think women influence differently at work?
I would say absolutely. In my personal opinion, I think both men and women have strong leadership styles and they can be slightly different, getting similar results, but I think women typically approach things a little different, whether it's that more collaborative, people-centric approach, which might come across a little softer, but then still gets the impact that we ultimately want, where I think sometimes men can come across a little more direct. I think I see it even within my own team, the differences between how each of them lead. Both very impactful, but I think we complement one another with our differences.
I agree. I think it actually a balance is perfect to kind of have different management styles and leadership styles. Kristen?
I'd like to echo that as well. I mean, I just think that, let's be real, as women, we're nurturing, and that's what we're really good at. And we're really, I think our attention to detail is pretty impactful. I mean, I think we're doers. We do things and we get things done, and it's kind of just what we're used to doing. So like Melissa said, there's a balance between the men and the women. I mean, for sure. But I think that we're a little bit more understanding in the details and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Tina?
I would say that, I feel like women in a lot of cases more frequently, they might influence others kind of indirectly. So, you kind of see their work, how they carry themselves. They're not as vocal maybe sometimes. And I would say there's probably less women that, influence directly where they have that more vocal style where, they're definitely in both cases coaching, supporting, sharing what they know. But I think a lot more women influence kind of indirectly, what kind of observing them versus men, I feel like are just a little more vocal.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on, Tina. I mean, you don't realize what you're doing when you're doing it, and you don't realize who's watching or not watching, or you know what I mean? Like like you, for instance, you were my first point of contact. You took me under your wing and you just made sure that I was taken care of and knew the ins and outs and the reports and all of that stuff. And you didn't skip a beat about it. You just kind of took me under your wing and did it. So, and thank you for that, because obviously within that, I'm still here 9 years later, but I mean, you definitely are, I would say maybe quiet influencer without, you're the go-to person in the organization. So, and it's something to be proud of for sure.
Thanks, Kristen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that leads right into, kind of, do you think women influence differently So when you heard that you'd received this award and you looked at other women in the or in the CPG industry who'd also received the award, what does it mean to you to be a woman of influence? Is there something that you feel like got you there, or is there a certain responsibility you feel on what that means for you, and how you want to continue your career?
I think it was pretty impactful. I think similar to the previous answer, right? We are those doers and don't typically, showcase or try to point out what we do. So to be, nominated is pretty impactful that somebody's noticing those things that we are doing for the organization. So really, I think for me, it's just meaningful knowing that I'm making an impact on, the organization and the people that I work with and for. I definitely appreciate it.
Well, and I think it's interesting. You brought up earlier, Melissa, balancing family with that. I'm sure that many of those same skills transition over into your personal life, whether you realize it or not.
Yes, definitely. Definitely a balance, and then trying to help, lead by example and show that you can do a little bit of both, right? And making sure work's important, but your family is there, they're your kind of support structure.
Absolutely. Kristen?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think, you come out of college and you start your career and you just do it, right? You move from one position to the next. And obviously, between PepsiCo and us, it's 18 years within the CPG industry. And you blink and here we are. And it's like, and you work really hard at it. It was like the proudest moment, I'd have to say, in my career, because it didn't happen when I was younger. It didn't happen in the middle of my career. It's kind of, and not my career is ending, I'm not saying that, but I'm just, it's at a really good point where it just makes you feel very proud for all the blood, sweat, and tears. Because let's be honest, we know this isn't the easiest industry. It just isn't, between salty snacks, beverages, whatever it is, there's a lot of influence. There's a lot on you. So yeah, it was just very proud. I mean, one of the proudest moments probably of my life, and my family, my family is extremely proud, and my coworkers, to have the amount of congratulations and all of that. It just felt really, I'm proud to be here, and it was a proud moment. So yeah, you kind of want to get a little teary eyed too, because it's, how hard you've worked your whole life, and to be recognized. And it's not even, like it's people within the industry. So it's my customer, they're in there as well. So it's nice to be recognized. So
Absolutely. I should be proud.
mhm.
Tina?
Obviously, it means a lot. I mean, to be, selected and seeing the people past years. I mean, Tiffany, Jess, Haley. I mean, I've been looking up to Tiffany and obviously Haley for years, and Jess is awesome for, they were nominated prior years. To be kind of recognized as someone the following year, that's just so neat. Definitely a testament to the small and big wins like over the years. And then obviously, like, it's a reward to think that I'm probably making an impact on someone else's career. So that just means a lot too.
Thank you. Well, the word proud came up a lot. And then, we talked about kind of quietly and indirectly leading, which I think all of you, I would echo your sentiments that that's often how, not to make a broad statement, but women tend to lead a little differently. So what I wanted to do now is play for you a little note on, for each of you, the person who nominated you for this recognition and why they submitted that nomination, and just kind of get your feedback on how it feels to hear this and have a question for you on it too. So I'm going to start with Kristin Powell.
Hello, this is Ed Berta, Senior Vice President of Sales for Utz Brands. I wanted to share just a few of the reasons why I nominated Kristin Powell for Women of Influence in the food industry. After a 10-year career with PepsiCo, calling on customers in central Pennsylvania, she came to the Utz family as a key account executive. During that year, she called on a number of channels of business, including dollar, drug, natural, and grocery. She was very successful in growing the business, expanding distribution in these channels. She was later promoted to a senior key account executive, calling on Giant of Carlisle and Giant of Landover, and then later embraced the opportunity to call on Utz's largest grocery customer, Food Lion. Customers look at Kristen as a category leader, a strategic partner. They recognized her in 2019 in Gina Landauer as Vendor of the Year, just one of the many recognitions she has received from these accounts and from the industry. Besides being customer focused, she's focused on the community. She participates in all of the Untitled charity events, volunteers her time to the local food bank, and is the face of UTS in her community. Kristen understands the issues surrounding the food industry. She participates in so many of the Mid-Atlantic Food Trade Organization events, along with the Pennsylvania Food Merchants Association. She is a mentor for key account people and for managers in the UTS organization. She embraces change. She takes new selling tools and processes and works with other key account people and managers in developing their sales skills. She is a person who drives diversity and inclusion initiatives in our organization. She's a role model not only for women, but everybody in the organization. For these reasons and so many more, I nominated her for Women of Influence in the Food Industry.
Well, and we all know Edberta just retired, so that's a little bittersweet. I didn't mean to make Kristen teary.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, that will cut me off guard, but that's okay.
Overall, how did it feel to hear that? And I think one thing that really stood out for me was how Ed talked about how you were a role model, not just, in the organization, but really in the community. How did that feel to hear? And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, obviously, it brought me to tears for sure. And, Carol Sunkel was my woman of influence and mentor, but clearly between, Ed was the beginning of my career as well. And as far as a man of influence and influencing, and he always pushed me to a level out of my comfort level to the next level, and was such a huge supporter and always has been through my entire career. And it just makes me feel really proud because a lot of the things that you do and you work hard for is not just for yourself, but the people that you report to. And you want to make them proud of you and do a good job for them. So, and the support that I've always had for him is undeniable. Whether it was inside of work or outside, he always kind of just made sure that you were taken care of. So yeah, that one caught me off a little guard, but it's kind of hard right now, but yeah, but I'm just proud that I was able to work for him at this point. So, and yeah, and being very involved in the community, with partnering and being part of All Hold. We would work at the food bank, and that is, if there's one thing in your life that you could do, is probably go and pack up food, and it makes you humbled that I'm able to provide for my my family, but there's people that cannot. We would pack up over 500 tons of food in an evening, so it feels good to be able to do that and give back into the community as well.
That's really nice. I thought that was an especially nice part of his message is, you as a whole person, which we all hope to get to know those at work that we're mentored by and mentoring, not just who we are at work, but who we are as a whole person.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So Melissa, I now have yours in the same format, and I am going to play this from Ethan.
Hi, this is Ethan Berblinger, Senior Vice President Manufacturing for UTS Brands. I wanted to share some of the reasons why I nominated Melissa Bautista for the 2021 Women of Influence in the Food Industry. First, a bit of history on Melissa. Melissa came to UTS via the Tim's acquisition. She's currently the Area VP of Operations with the responsibility of running the Tim's Hawaiian Algona plant, as well as regional distribution centers located in Portland, Linwood, and Spokane. Prior to Tim's, she spent 12 years with Frito in the areas of supply chain and manufacturing. In addition to her professional accomplishments, she's also very well educated with an undergraduate degree from Clarkson University and most recently completing her MBA via LSU. In a very short period of time, Melissa made her impact on UTS. She championed the D365 integration, being the first facility to go live, and then went on to add support to other UTS locations, particularly Gramercy and Goodyear. She also worked with the continuous improvement team to integrate Red Zone in the Algona plant. Melissa's strengths lie in her ability to problem solve, given her excellent critical thinking ability. She's a good communicator and a motivated leader, providing clear direction to her team. I'm proud Melissa is both part of my team, but more importantly, she's part of the UTS team. Congratulations to Melissa for being recognized for the 2021 Women of Influence in the Food Industry.
All right. So that was from Ethan. Similar to what I asked Kristen, I'd love to just hear kind of how it felt to hear those thoughts from Ethan. And then, what really stood out to me is where Ethan talked about what a motivating leader and good communicator you are. And in reading through your background on the Griffin Report, I know that you, took on a pretty big new challenge that it sounds like honed those skills for you in the career path you might not have considered previously. So do you think some of those skills were honed as you made this move, or do you think they're really the driver behind the big move?
I'd say probably the driver behind the big move. I guess going back to what Ethan kind of said, definitely appreciate him nominating me. And I think similar to what kind of Kristen went and said, we have our female influencers, but Ethan's definitely been one of the best managers I've ever had in my career, even with the, couple of years that I've been under his umbrella, and great support system, with him. So I definitely appreciate him nominating me. Definitely making the move here, right? It's been a lot of things. I came out here, it was Pinnacle Foods, and then it was ConAgra, and then it was us, all in the last 4 years of kind of making the leap from moving from Texas to here, and changing back to the industry I did know. So I think just that leadership and taking on those new challenges and taking risks is probably one of those things that I've not been afraid to do in my career. So I think that's what's helped kind of drive me along the way.
That's great feedback. And it was really nice to hear. What I thought was interesting too is when you talked about being a woman of influence and how women influenced, and a lot of those same words are coming up in the, in the way that you guys have been described. So Tina, I am now going to play the recording from Ajay.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about Tina. She's an important leader in my team and for arts in general, and I can think of 3 reasons why that is. First, her leadership style, this quiet, get the job done, very effective style of managing her team and managing projects, that is very much in sync with Arts' culture. Secondly, over the last 12 years that Tina has been with us, she has gained this unique knowledge of our data, of our transactions, how things work in this company, because she has had many different jobs. She has worked in sales, finance, in IT, master data, helped with the Nucleus project. So that gives her this unique skill set that is hard to find in the company. And third, her demeanor, the way she works with her team, the way she manages complex and simple projects, all that makes her team members sort of love her and look up to her. So, all of those 3 things, I think, make her this role model for people that she hires into the company and then develops, and they go on and do other things within the business. And to me, that whole coaching, mentorship, leadership, and the knowledge base that she has makes her a very important part of what we do here at Arts. So I appreciate Tina, and thanks again for the time to talk about it.
So Tina, some very nice words, as they were from all 3 nominators. And Ajay used the word role model several times that already came up in our podcast. And then really what stood out to me is he brought up leading, coaching, and mentoring more than once. So I'd love to know how it felt to hear from Ajay, and also a little bit on mentorship. So how do you mentor those on your team or not on your team? And has anyone been a mentor to you? And if so, what did you learn from them?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's really cool to hear that from Ajay. As far as, mentoring, definitely my team has a mix of positions, entry level, senior manager. So there's opportunities really for everyone within the team and then throughout UTS. But I always find the, entry level roles are prime opportunities for someone just coming out of college or a few years into their career. And really the only qualifications is attitude, being able to be self-sufficient, and persistence really are the most important qualities that I'm looking for. because we can teach the work. But the goal within the team from a mentor standpoint is always to prime team members for so they're ready for that next big opportunity. Definitely when a leader in another department at UTS comes to me and says, hey, I want someone in your team, or someone in the team wants to apply for an internal role, I want them to be ready for that. That's always the goal, to have that kind of bench of talent. I think I read somewhere that, the average person stays in a position for like under 5 years. So that to me means, okay, it's important that we make the most of their time and get them in a position so they're ready for that next big thing. And how I try to get them there is definitely thinking about how we can get them exposure to other areas, how we can challenge them with projects, give them a chance to showcase what they can do within a controlled environment. An example is I almost never go to a cross-functional meeting by myself as the only representative from our group, always bringing someone with me from the team. So it's an opportunity for them to learn, to get involved. The other thing that I really try to push home is not being the main point of contact for things. So I want someone else in my team to be that go-to resource. It's definitely my job and my responsibility as a mentor, a coach, a leader to be there for them kind of behind the scenes, but it at least gives them that ownership of the item, lets them be the point of contact. But at the same time, they have someone kind of behind the scenes that they can go with questions to vet ideas. So that's kind of been, my strategy. Definitely from a mentor standpoint of who I looked up to. Definitely, I mentioned before, Haley Flynn was someone throughout my career I've kind of looked up to just because her leadership, and she's kind of brought me along. Definitely other past women of influence, people from UTS, Tiffany, she's been someone that I've looked up to. Just, years ago, first time I ever got to attend one of the sales managers meetings, she was always up front definitely speaking in front of a room of all males, which was pretty cool, but she was confident, they look up to her, and it's definitely cool to see her progression as well.
Thank you for sharing that. Well, like I said, I thought it was really interesting to hear a lot of the same terms that each of you individually used on being a woman of influence and what that meant, and then those terms being used to describe you and why you were nominated. So I think we appreciate the advice that you would give, that a lot of people who will be able to listen to this podcast heard, on how to mentor, how you've moved forward in a career. Melissa, you talked a little bit about making, a bold decision in your career and balancing, that work and life balance. Tina, you just talked a lot about how you help bring others along and, lead in a more quiet way, which I think is really interesting that you came out with on leading indirectly and quietly, but how that's still recognized, which I think is really nice to hear. And then Kristen, I thought one thing that rounded this out really nicely was talking about how that expands outside of work and what we're doing in the community, and how we use our position, our influence in the community to really try to have the community we live in be a better place and not just our workplace. So appreciate all of your time, all of the thoughts from you. Even next year when there's new women named of Women of Influence, certainly we appreciate the influence you bring to the organization this year and every year. And certainly as an important part, it entwines so nicely with what our mission is as the UTS Women's Mentoring Group. So we thought it was important for people to hear from you on your career path, your goals, how you got there, and just want to say thank you for your time, letting the listeners know a little bit more about you. And we're really proud to have each of you as members of the UTS family, as well as recognized women of influence.
Thank you for listening to Rewind, Pause, Play with the UTS Women's Mentoring Group. Please feel free to email us at uwmg@utsnacks.com for any questions or comments. We hope you enjoyed this podcast.